Thank you for watching part 1 and 2 of our series. Part 3 promises to be very entertaining, and we wish you enjoy it. For your utmost enjoyment, we advise you to go watch part 1 and 2 if you have not yet done so. Things have changed in the coastal village in KwaZulu from the last time we were there. This time, the village gathered under a sky burdened with dark, rolling clouds for the burial of the village medicine man. As the villagers lowered the old man's body into the earth, the first raindrops fell. Quiet sobs were drowned out by a sudden crack of thunder, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Then came the downpour, cold, merciless, and fierce. The villagers hurried for cover, but Lutando, standing near the grave, froze. High above the burial ground, something dark and terrifying emerged in the clouds. A monstrous shape of smoke and water moved violently, its hollow eyes glaring down at the retreating villagers. Lightning cracked, illuminating the grotesque creature that seemed to grow larger with each passing second. Its roar pierced the storm, a sound that spoke of anger and anguish. "Leave!" it shouted, its voice reverberating like thunder. The villagers screamed and scattered to their homes. Lutando's heart raced as he watched the creature twist and squirm in the sky. He could sense its rage, feel the raw power it carried. This was no ordinary storm. The creature was alive, furious, and looking for something or someone. When Lutando finally gathered himself and ran home, he knew his life, and that of the village, would never be the same. Arriving at his home, Lutando found the thatched roof partially torn, rainwater pooling inside. His spirits sank, but as he approached his door, he stopped short. Sitting on the wet ground was a shimmering object, no larger than his palm. It glowed faintly, pulsating like a heartbeat. The moment Lutando reached for it, the shard flared, radiating intense heat that forced him to pull back. It hissed, and the heat was replaced by a biting cold that numbed his fingers, even from a distance. "What is this?" Lutando murmured, wary but determined. The ancient shell given to him by the mermaid vibrated faintly in his pocket as if urging him forward. Summoning his courage, Lutando clasped the shard, enduring the burning pain and icy torment that pulsed through his body. His vision blurred, and he stumbled as the world seemed to shift around him. Through the haze of agony, a voice, low and guttural, echoed in his mind. "Prove your worth, child of the ocean. The balance must be restored." When Lutando finally dropped the shard, it dissolved into the rain-soaked ground, leaving behind a sense of foreboding. He was being watched, tested, and perhaps even hunted. That night, Lutando lay shivering on his thin mat, his body racked with fever. His hands, which had held the shard, were blistered, and dark veins snaked up his arms as though the object's energy had poisoned him. Sweat drenched his brow, but he felt as if ice flowed through his veins. "Mother!" he called weakly, his voice barely a whisper. But his mother, still at the communal hut with the other villagers seeking refuge from the storm, could not hear him. By morning, the fever had worsened. Lutando's breathing grew labored, and he slipped in and out of consciousness, haunted by strange visions. He saw the grotesque creature towering above the village, its hollow eyes watching him intently. He heard the guttural voice again, this time louder. "The balance must be restored, or you will perish." Each time Lutando tried to rise, his body betrayed him, leaving him sprawled on the floor. His strength disappeared and despair set in. "Is this the end?" he whispered to no one. On the third night, Lutando felt himself slipping away. The room around him blurred and darkened, and his breathing slowed to a shallow rasp. The ancient shell in his pocket vibrated once more, jolting him into a dreamlike state. He found himself standing in an endless expanse of water, the surface unnaturally still and reflective. Above him, the sky covered with dark clouds, and in the distance, the grotesque creature loomed. "You are not ready," the creature hissed, its voice echoing. You cannot withstand the forces you seek to challenge." Lutando fell to his knees, the weight of the creature's presence pressing down on him. He tried to speak, but his throat felt as though it had closed. Just as he thought he would suffocate, a soft, melodic voice broke through the darkness. "Rise, Lutando, rise. You carry the ocean's spirit within you." The mermaid appeared beside him, her form radiant and comforting. She placed a hand on his shoulder, and warmth spread through his body, chasing away the cold and pain. "The shard has awakened something ancient within you. You must endure it to fulfill your destiny." Lutando nodded weakly, clinging to her words. Back in the waking world, Lutando's body convulsed violently. The dark veins on his arms glowed faintly, pulsing with a weird light. The storm outside seemed to respond to his condition, the wind howling louder and lightning flashing with greater intensity. Summoning the last of his strength, Lutando reached for the shell in his pocket. Its cool surface seemed to hum with life. As he gripped it tightly, a soothing energy spread through him, battling the darkness that had taken hold of his body. The struggle was agonizing. Lutando felt as though he were being torn apart, the energy of the shard clashing with the magical power of the shell. But slowly, the darkness retreated, the glowing veins dimming until they vanished entirely. Lutando gasped for air, his body trembling but free from the icy grip of the illness. The fever broke, leaving him drenched in sweat but alive. As dawn broke, Lutando staggered to his feet, leaning heavily against the wall for support. Though weak, he felt a new sense of clarity. The shard had tested him, its energy unlocking something deep within his spirit. Looking at his hands, now free of blisters, Lutando realized he was no longer the same. The trial had changed him, leaving behind a connection to something greater than himself. He could still feel the shard's presence, its energy lingering like an echo. By morning, the wind screamed through the village, uprooting trees and tossing debris like leaves. Thunder roared like an angry beast, and lightning struck dangerously close to the homes. The villagers scrambled to save their belongings, crying prayers to ancestors for protection. Lutando rushed outside, his heart pounding as he saw families desperately trying to keep their huts intact. But his focus shifted when a collective screaming arose from the villagers. At the heart of the village square, the creature emerged from the chaos. No longer a distant silhouette in the clouds, it now stood as a grotesque humanoid figure. Its smoky, semi-translucent body swirled with water, and its hollow eyes burned with a scary blue light. The creature's voice boomed, a guttural echo that shook the earth beneath them. "Your mermaid and mystical beings interfere too much in my plans. You, boy, will undo what has been done." The villagers screamed, holding charms and hiding behind whatever shelter they could find. Some fell to their knees, whispering intense prayers, but Lutando couldn't move. He felt the creature's gaze pierce through him, an oppressive force that froze him in place. Clenching his teeth, Lutando took a deep breath. "It's up to me. I have to protect them." He stepped forward, his fists clenched, feeling every pair of frightened eyes on him. The ancient shell in his pocket pulsed faintly, as if urging him on. "I don't know what you want," Lutando shouted over the storm, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at him. "But I won't let you harm this village." The creature let out a low, guttural laugh that echoed like crashing waves. "You? A mere child? You think you can stand against the depths of the abyss?" Recalling the mermaid's teachings, Lutando extended his arms and closed his eyes, tuning out the chaos around him. He focused on the rhythm of the rain, the surge of the wind, and the electric hum of the storm. Slowly, he began to weave their energies, forming a barrier of water around the village. The lightning, which had been striking indiscriminately, now arced harmlessly into the barrier, its power redirected. The winds calmed slightly, enough for the villagers to find better shelter. The creature's roar split the air, its smoky form flickering as Lutando's magic disrupted its hold. "You defy me?" it growled, its voice laced with venom. It lunged toward Lutando, smoky tendrils whipping out like serpents. Lutando barely managed to dodge, the force of the attack sending him stumbling backward. The ground beneath his feet turned slick with water as the creature's essence seeped into the earth, causing jagged springs to erupt around him. Summoning his strength, Lutando pushed back with a burst of energy from the barrier. Water surged like a tidal wave, crashing into the creature and dispersing its form. But as the wave receded, the creature reformed, its smoky body more solid and menacing than before. "You are weak!" it roared, advancing on Lutando. "The ocean's power is not yours to command." Lutando felt the strain of the battle weighing on him. His legs trembled, and his breathing grew harder. The creature was relentless, its attacks faster and more ferocious with each passing moment. In a desperate move, Lutando threw another surge of water at the creature, but this time it split the attack with ease, its tendrils wrapping around Lutando's arms and legs. He cried out as the creature lifted him into the air, its hollow eyes burning into his soul. "Your courage will drown in the depths," it hissed, tightening its grip. Pain shot through Lutando's body as the tendrils constricted, and for a brief moment, despair overtook him. He saw the terrified faces of the villagers below, their hope fading as they watched their protector being overwhelmed. In that moment of darkness, the ancient shell in Lutando's pocket flared with a brilliant light. Its hum grew louder, resonating through his body like the song of the ocean. A memory of the mermaid's words surfaced in his mind. "The ocean's spirit is within you." Summoning every bit of strength left, Lutando clenched his fists and focused on the shell's energy. A sudden surge of power erupted from him, breaking the creature's hold and sending it reeling backward. The storm intensified, but Lutando stood tall, his eyes blazing with determination. He raised his arms, drawing the storm's energy toward him. The rain and wind swirled into a massive tornado, merging into a spear of water and lightning. The creature roared in defiance, its smoky form towering above him. "You cannot destroy me!" Lutando stepped forward, his voice steady. "Maybe not, but I can stop you from destroying my village." With a mighty thrust, Lutando hurled the spear at the creature. It struck with a deafening explosion, the force scattering the creature into tendrils of smoke and water. As the creature dissolved, the storm began to calm. The winds softened to a breeze, and the rain fell gently, cleansing the battered village. Lutando collapsed to his knees, exhausted but victorious. The villagers slowly emerged from their hiding places, their faces a mixture of wonder and relief. They surrounded Lutando, some weeping, others chanting his name. Though he was too weak to speak, Lutando managed a faint smile. He had faced the storm and the creature's wrath, and won. But deep in his heart, he knew this was only the beginning. The creature's parting words lingered in his mind, a chilling reminder of the trials yet to come. Days passed on, and the storm showed no sign of stopping. Dark clouds loomed over the village, pouring endless rain that turned the earth into a muddy swamp. The villagers, frightened and desperate, gathered every evening in the largest communal hut, seeking comfort in each other's presence. The air was heavy with fear and whispers of doom. One fateful evening, as thunder roared and lightning cracked across the sky, the creature returned. This time, it did not remain hidden in the shadows. Slowly, it descended into the heart of the village. Its massive form seemed to block out what little light the storm allowed, towering over the huts like a terrifying god. "Lutando!" Its voice boomed, shaking the ground and making the walls of the huts tremble. "Face me, or your village will crumble to dust." The villagers gasped, clutching each other as they peered out from behind wooden boards. Lutando, standing near the center of the gathering, felt his heart race. His breath came in short bursts, but he stepped forward. He knew he had no choice. His people needed him. He walked into the rain-soaked square, the downpour soaking him to the bone. The creature loomed closer, its body crackling with strange, dark energy. It seemed to pulse with life, yet it was otherworldly, almost unreal. "You dare to challenge the keeper of balance?" The creature roared, its eyes glowing like two small suns. Lutando opened his mouth to reply, but before he could speak, the creature raised a hand made of swirling smoke. Instantly, the air around him shone, and visions appeared before his eyes. He saw the village in flames, its huts collapsing into ash as villagers screamed for help. The faces of people he loved twisted in terror, vanishing into smoke. Next, he saw the mermaid who had guided him earlier in his journey. Her once vibrant, shining body lay lifeless on the shore, her eyes dull and empty. Finally, Lutando saw himself, alone, broken and powerless, consumed by guilt and failure. The visions crushed him like a wave, overwhelming his senses. He staggered, nearly falling to his knees. The weight of his fears was unbearable, and for a moment he thought of giving up. But deep within him, a memory stirred. He thought of the mermaid and her teachings. She had told him that fear was like the ocean. It could rise and swell, but it would always fall again. Fear, she had said, was a part of life, but it didn't have to control him. Drawing strength from her words, Lutando closed his eyes. He focused on the feel of the cold rain on his skin, the sound of the storm around him, and the ground beneath his feet. These were real. The visions were not. He took a deep breath and reminded himself, fear is a wave. It will pass. With renewed determination, Lutando opened his eyes. The visions began to blur and fade. He stood tall, facing the creature, whose smoky form rippled with frustration. "I will not bow to fear," Lutando shouted, his voice strong and steady. Summoning every bit of courage and magic within him, he raised his hands. A bright surge of energy erupted from him, lighting up the stormy night like a flash of lightning. The blast struck the creature with incredible force, causing it to roll backward. Its massive body flickered, shrinking slightly as it struggled to maintain its form. For the first time, Lutando saw weakness in his opponent. He had struck a blow not with brute strength, but with his ability to overcome the fear that had once paralyzed him. The creature let out a guttural sound, a mix of rage and pain. Its smoky form began to dissipate, but as it vanished, it left behind one chilling message. "The ocean will be your undoing," it hissed, its voice echoing like a whisper carried by the wind. Then it was gone, leaving only the storm in its wake. Lutando stood there, breathing heavily, the rain washing away the sweat and dirt from his face. He had faced his greatest fears and emerged victorious, but the creature's final words lingered in his mind like a shadow. What did it mean? What awaited him in the ocean? The storm reached its peak, a monstrous force of nature that reshaped the coastline into an unrecognizable landscape. The once calm beach was a chaos of towering waves, battering winds, and lightning that tore across the sky. The villagers clustered on higher ground, watching in terror as waves taller than the trees crashed against the shore, threatening to swallow their homes. The air was thick with fear and salt, and the roar of the storm drowned out all sound. As Lutando stood at the edge of the water, gripping the enchanted seashell tightly, the mermaid appeared beside him. Her face, usually peaceful, was pale with urgency, her glowing tail flicking restlessly in the frothing waves. "Lutando, it's drawing its strength from the sea," she said, her voice cutting through the storm like a beacon. "We must stop it there, or everything will be lost." Lutando hesitated for only a moment, his heart pounding in his chest. Then, with a deep breath, he nodded. Together, they dove into the raging ocean. The water was icy and unforgiving, a living force that seemed intent on tearing them apart. Currents swirled wildly, pulling Lutando in every direction. Each wave that crashed over him felt like a hammer, and the salt burned his eyes and throat. Shadowy shapes moved in the dark depths, creatures fabricated by the wicked force they had come to face. Their eyes glowed with scary light, and their razor-sharp teeth gleamed as they snapped at Lutando. The mermaid swam ahead, her glowing form cutting through the darkness like a guiding star. Her magic shielded Lutando from the worst of the attacks, and together they pushed forward, deeper into the storm's heart. At last, they reached the center of the chaos. There, the creature revealed its true form. It was a colossal amalgamation of smoke, water, and fire, a terrifying being that seemed to embody the storm itself. Its form shifted constantly, its edges blurring and reforming as it moved. Its eyes burned with unrelenting fury, and its voice was a deafening roar that made the ocean tremble. "You dare defy the balance?" it roared, its words vibrating through the water. "You are nothing but a pawn." Lutando felt small and fragile in the presence of such raw power, but the mermaid's voice steadied him. "Focus, Lutando. Use what we've learned. Together, we can stop it." The battle began. The mermaid and Lutando combined their powers, summoning whirlpools and currents that lashed out at the creature. Water spiraled and stirred as they fought, creating a chaotic battlefield. The creature countered with fiery blasts that hissed and sizzled as they met the water, and suffocating waves of smoke that threatened to choke them. Every strike against the creature weakened it. But each attack also drained Lutando's strength. His arms ached, his lungs burned, and his magic felt like a flickering candle in a raging wind. The mermaid stayed close, her magic weaving protective barriers and countering the creature's attacks. But then, the creature let out a deafening roar, and a powerful wave slammed into them. Lutando was thrown backward, tumbling through the water like a leaf in a storm. When he managed to right himself, he saw the mermaid struggling against the currents, her light dimming. "Lutando, you must go on without me," she cried, her voice filled with both determination and sorrow. "What? No, I need you!" Lutando shouted back, his heart sinking. "You have all the strength you need. Believe in yourself. Remember, fear is a wave. It will pass. Now go!" With a final burst of energy, the mermaid sent a current that pushed Lutando forward, closer to the creature. As he turned back, she disappeared into the stormy depths, her glow fading into darkness. Lutando felt a wave of despair wash over him, but he clung to her words. He had come too far to give up now. Clenching his teeth, he gripped the enchanted seashell tightly and swam toward the creature. The storm raged around him as he faced the monster alone. Its fiery eyes locked onto him, and it unleashed a torrent of attacks. Lutando dodged fiery blasts and swirling currents, his movements fueled by sheer willpower. He remembered everything the mermaid had taught him and called upon his magic once more. In a final act of desperation, Lutando raised the seashell high. Its surface began to glow, brighter and brighter, until it shone like the sun itself. Lutando focused all his remaining strength into the shell, pouring his magic into it. "This ends now!" he shouted, his voice echoing over the storm. A brilliant light erupted from the shell, a beam of pure energy that shot straight into the creature. The light pierced through its smoky form, unraveling it piece by piece. The creature let out a terrible roar as it began to dissolve, its body turning to mist that was carried away by the wind. As the creature disappeared, the storm began to calm. The waves grew smaller, the winds gentler, and the sky started to clear. The ocean became still, and the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds. Lutando floated in the water, exhausted but triumphant. The mermaid was gone, but her teachings and her sacrifice had made this victory possible. He swam back to the shore, where the villagers awaited him. As they cheered his return, Lutando couldn't help but look out at the ocean, the mermaid's final words echoing in his mind. She was gone, but her spirit lived on in him. The battle was won, but Lutando knew his journey was far from over. Thank you for watching Part 3 up to this far. Please subscribe to our channel so that we can bring you Part 4. Like this video and share it to your friends so that they can enjoy it too. Tell us what you think in the comments section.